Save the Second is a pro-Second Amendment organization. Through good or bad, we're here to help drive and save the NRA from itself and the Second from the infighting that happens among the Second Amendment supporters. Because without the Second, the rest will fall. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual co-host and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Save the Second or their employers. This show offers commentary on the latest news associated with the NRA and Save the Second's endeavor to promote a strong, relevant, effective, and accountable NRA.
Guys, oh my gosh. I don't know if that was weird for you, but in my audio, that was really weird. Okay, sorry.
I don't know. I just heard like some techno music and I started. That was awesome, man.
We're going to get the rave or something going. I don't know. No, so welcome to the Save the Second podcast. Today is Sunday, August 9th, 2020. This is episode 24. My name is Ron Carter. Joining me currently is Anthony Garcia and Frank Tate. Gentlemen, how are you today?
Doing well.
Doing not bad.
Not bad. I'm above average. Technical difficulties aside, I suppose. Rob Pincus will be joining us shortly, and I've got a good friend of mine, Ken McCohen, who will hopefully sign on and give us a little bit more regular life member perspective later. But regardless, gentlemen, normally we do introductions, of course, like who you are, what you've been doing. If you don't know Frank Tate, you're silly. You need to get caught up to speed. If you don't know Anthony Garcia, go catch yourself up to speed. If you don't know me, well, I don't blame you because I'm no one important. However, oh my goodness gracious, I've been trying to reform the NRA for quite a while now, as has Anthony Garcia, Frank, and Rob, and so many of us. So many of us have unfortunately been calling this, for a while. We've been perpetually saying that the NRA is headed for disaster, and now we're at the brink of it, and it's hard not to say, I told you so. At least that's my current feelings. Anthony, what do you think, man?
Yeah, we've been saying this now for, I think, nearly 2 years. Well, over a year and a half anyway, that we've been doing this. And, I mean, really, at this point, the Attorney General coming out with the suit to dissolve the NRA, honestly, is not surprising. I mean, we've just been kind of waiting for it, and we all kind of assumed it was going to happen. Now that it's here, it is what it is, I guess, but it's not surprising.
Yeah, not surprising at all, at least to me. Frank, did it surprise you at all?
I would say the details in the complaint were really surprising. I spent my time focusing on the audit committee because my background is as a finance guy who can read that, and the details in there, I would just say, are appalling. That the organization that by New York state law is responsible for ensuring regulatory compliance and oversight of business ethics wasn't even asleep on the job. They weren't even on it. They didn't even know that was their job. It's infuriating.
Geez, that's disconcerting to me. Now, of course, I've never served on an audit committee. I don't know a lot about that, so I'm going to defer to Frank in many cases like that. But joining the stream now is Mr. Pincus. Rob, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great. I'm up here in central Michigan, hanging out with my dad. My dad and stepmom are out playing grandparents with toddler Pincus, and we're just here for another day or two as part of our 2-week nationwide end of summer road trip.
Man, that's awesome. My kids are outside right now. I had my kids power wash our garage this afternoon, and it was hilarious. It was absolutely hilarious.
Are they of the opinion that that's just a bunch of fun for them?
Oh, absolutely. Okay,
right.
Yeah. My son, my son can barely hold it without falling backwards, and my daughter literally has to lean into it. And so it's perfect AR training, honestly, because I'm telling them not to grip with their primary. I'm like, hey, it's on the support. Push that support out. It's wonderful. I enjoy it so much.
Good deal.
Oh. Yeah, so gentlemen, Say again, sorry, Rob.
I was just saying, sorry I was running late, but I heard a few minutes of just a couple of minutes, I guess, right before I came on with you guys. And it looks like Frank's having trouble with his audio, but he said he's going to jump right back in.
Yeah, Frank is awesome, and as I was mentioning just before you jumped in, there's so much of the legal ease that I don't understand, especially in conjunction with the audit committee and whatnot. I think he has far more experience there, so we'll defer to him later on. Now, first of all, I want to talk about an open letter. You know, I think last year we probably had somewhere between 10 to 12 open letters written. Andy Lander wrote one. Goodness, if I can talk. Steve Hoback. I mean, there was probably 12 open letters to the NRA and the NRA's board of directors that went completely without any credence to the NRA. And now we have another one, an open letter from NRA benefactor member Anthony L. DeWitt. Gentlemen, did you guys get a chance to read any of that?
I did.
I'm sorry, you did?
I did.
Hey, Rob, tell me your thoughts, man.
Well, I think that I think your point is probably more important than anything specific in this letter. The idea that these letters, I believe, while directed towards the board or directed towards, in some cases, Mr. LaPierre himself and all of the leadership of the NRA, I think that what they do best, and this is the reason that they are open letters, is that they educate the average American gun owner. And really, they educate anybody who's watching this situation about the obtuse nature of any actual response or any actual comment from the board officially, or from the president officially, or from Mr. LaPierre or the NRA officially, in regard to the pulse of American gun owners and the members, and just the tone deafness with which they operate, being willful ignorant, being willingly obtuse to the issues, and willfully not commenting on them, right? If these were letters that were written in private, for example, the original letter that sort of broke everything open a year and a half ago from Oliver North to Wayne LaPierre, that was not an open letter, right? This has become very open, but these are the kinds of things that we know have gone on for decades in different ways, where Wayne LaPierre and or the leadership and or board members and or the executive committee have been basically held account. People have attempted to hold them accountable. People have attempted to call them out. People have criticized their actions, and those people have been silenced, bought off, fired, pushed out, ostracized, whatever word, bullied, whatever words you want to throw at it. They certainly haven't been listened to. Well, now what we're seeing with these open letters is that it's irrefutable. The person who loves Wayne LaPierre the most, but isn't personally benefiting from supporting Wayne LaPierre, has to just be living some kind of weird, bipolar, manic, multiple personality life to see these open letters go ignored, to see the facts of evidence put out in public and yet not even responded to. And I think that's the best that they do. That's the most important thing that these open letters do. And I've encouraged a lot of people to sort of come out on this issue, to speak their truth publicly, to call out people that need to be called out publicly, to share their experiences and observations. And many of these people have, thankfully, but there's still far too many people who've been on the inside who are being silent. I think of what Desiree Payne did with the bonus episode of Gangster Capitalism as a perfect example. I mean, here's someone who could not have been tied closer willfully and voluntarily without any direct personal gain, right? Obviously, her husband at the time stood to gain very much personally and professionally from, kissing up to Wayne and sort of doing his side work, right, outside of the main structure of the NRA. But she jumped in. She believed she was doing the right thing, and she had an epiphany, and she spoke out. The gentleman who worked as a volunteer coordinator for the Friends of the NRA for so many years, his name's escaping me right now, who also spoke to Gangster Capitalism using his real name. These are examples, again, of these open letters, these open protests. These people were saying, I was there, I lived it, I saw it, I know what I did was wrong, but I believed it was right at the time, and now I'm going to tell my story. That's where these open letters should be really powerful, because they're obviously not making a difference to Wayne LaPierre or Carolyn Meadows.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Michael Schwartz was the other guy that you were searching for the name of. So we had two eyewitnesses that essentially said that Paul Payne was hired to electioneer the NRA board of directors. Of course, Frank was directly affected by that.
And just real quick, it was Michael Schwartz was on that episode talking about it, but I was speaking about the gentleman who for over 2 decades worked in the Friends of the NRA benefit side of the house, and was one of the people who came out on one of those episodes and said, he had gone to the people in his state and said, look, 50% of this money stays here. I know this money is going to help us regardless of what they're doing in Fairfax. And when it turned out that wasn't true, he resigned, and then spoke about how that was really going on for years, and he was sort of living under a shade, hoping it was still true, but when he realized it just couldn't be defended anymore, he finally broke with the NRA, and had to go out and start telling people the truth. So, separate from Michael Schwartz, who's again also involved with that electioneering issue, and then Desiree was that gentleman whose name I still can't think of, but different issue.
Yeah, I think we'll find his name shortly, if our memory ever kicks in gear. Anthony, tell me something, man. So I'm not sure if you got a chance to read the open letter from Mr. Anthony L. DeWitt, but still, I'm curious your thoughts on these open letters. Previously in the past, we had tried as Save the Second to get members to write their NRA board of directors, and I think that probably made itself useless because the NRA directors don't care what you or I have to say, or its members. So do you think that the open letters are serving as a better catalyst for productive change?
To kind of touch on something Rob said here with regards to that, I think what it's really doing is it's making it very pronounced that the board is ignoring it. It's making it very pronounced. Wayne obviously hasn't said anything. Very few of the board members. The only ones that responded to the early ones, I believe, are now no longer on the board. They resigned. And then here with this latest one written by Anthony L. DeWitt, we actually did get a response in this case. And it was from Herb Lanford, and it's actually pretty funny. We can read it in a sec. But I think that lack of response is a stark contrast to what you would expect directors of an organization, what you would expect from them. You would expect something much more like they give a damn about their organization, but they don't. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. It seems to me that, well, first of all, of the 73 current directors, of the 76 potential directors that are supposed to be on the board, of the 73 that are currently there, I've only seen one actually engage membership, and that is Herb Lanford on our Facebook page. In regards to NRA benefactor life member Anthony DeWitt, if you haven't checked out his awesome post, well, please do. But Herb Lanford said in regards to that, I read the article and I was not impressed. It is one of the most emotionally manipulative pieces I have read in a long time. Let the chips fall where they may, based on the facts, not creative writing. Holy good God Almighty, that's what he said. I swear to God, you can go. I got the screenshot. This guy is talking about his constituent, the guy that he's supposed to represent, the guy that probably voted for him, as being emotionally manipulative. Bullshit!
Man, you want to talk about tone deaf? This guy right here, Herb Lanford, freaking tone deaf. Holy crap!
And pardon my language. I usually don't talk, or I usually don't try to cuss on the air or live. So pardon me, but dude, if you read that particular piece, I'll give you a quote real fast. How about that? Here's a quote. He says, quote, "If what the New York Attorney General has alleged is true, a platoon of Wayne LaPierre cronies have been elected to the board and continue to help him pillage membership funds on behalf of himself and his family. That's money that suckers like me contributed. So yeah, I guess I'm still a little angry even today. You God dang right, Mr. DeWitt. I am angry too. And okay, maybe I should bring it down a little bit. Pardon me. Mr. Tate, I think I saw this as a result of you commenting on this particular piece, this open letter. Hey, man, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I saw the open letter, and that's why I'm the one that shared it, because I'm part of a site called Ricochet, which is a center-right discussion group where they try and keep politics out of it. But I read it; it resonated with me, and I think that the statement that Rob made earlier, the board's willful ignorance, I think, is the watchword of the day. Because when you read this complaint from the state of New York, and you read the details in here, willful ignorance comes through loud and freaking clear. I'm an accountant by education. I've served on boards for over 20 years. I've been on audit committees. I've been chairs of audit committee. I've worked with external auditors. I've written policies and implemented policies. And reading the section about internal audit here is infuriating. And if you want the highlights, it's on page 114 of the complaint, starting with point 476. The fact that the chair of the audit committee, which I may be inaccurate, but I believe that was Charles Cotton at this point, is that there's no internal auditing. There's no reason why. I don't know why we haven't had it the whole 19 years I've been on the board. Where are the controls? The complaint makes it very clear that under New York law, it is the audit committee's responsibility to maintain compliance with New York law and to oversight of regulatory compliance and business ethics. And also the mission statement of the audit committee says that it's responsible to provide oversight of regulatory compliance and business ethics. And then you have the whole thing about the whistleblowers, where the whistleblowers brought these things in the top 10 issues, and the audit committee hid them from their external auditors. They said that in the minutes said that the external auditors were in the meeting, and they were not, and that the chair of the audit committee left the meeting before the presentation of the issues by the whistleblowers. And then there's no follow-up. The only thing that they have done is to refer the matter to the external legal counsel. So again, more members' money going to pay lawyers. To me, this is unconscionable that these guys are doing this. And then the two things that really stuck out to me were point 509 on page 122, where then they went back and ratified the related party transactions in contravention of New York law and policy. And then in the meeting on 2018 and 2019 audit committee meetings, going back and retroactively approving things as much as 15 years ago without ever even looking at the documents that they were approving. These guys are willfully ignorant of their responsibilities. They breach fiduciary duty, and that the resolution that was put in front of the members at the members meeting last year, to me, understated the case on how willfully ignorant that the audit committee and the executive committee are, and they're just wasting our money.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's nothing in this that says, "Wow, the NRA leadership is exceptionally prudent and has my best interests as a member." I mean, of course, now the retroactive stuff. We were told by several board members in January that, hey, that's normal. It's normal to go and retroactively, approve things and expenditures. And, we didn't approve this. Oh, that was a mistake. We just forgot to. We need to go approve it. Well, guess what? One of those, if I recall correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, was Josh Powell's father being a photographer, and he got several $1,000s for supposedly taking some pictures. Now, don't get me wrong. So, photographers are great, but hey, my daughter, she's 12 years old. She can take some really good photos. Maybe we can get some, $100,000 for that. I don't know. Oh God, Anthony, I mean, am I way out of line here? I'm so freaking fed up.
Dude, no. All right. So here at the very end of the complaint summons, after there are over 600 individual little complaints about stuff on us. I'm not a legalese guy. But anyway, looking here at the end, it's got the relief section. And there was a couple of things in here that I just wanted to read because it really just kind of lays on the line what the NRA did and what the management did. Excuse me. It says under B here, declaring that the NRA has exceeded the authority conferred upon it by law and it's carried on its business in a persistently fraudulent or illegal manner. Okay, that's one thing. Under C here, it says declaring that directors or members in control of the NRA have looted or wasted the NRA's charitable assets, have perpetuated the corporation solely for their personal benefit, or have otherwise acted in an illegal, oppressive, or fraudulent manner, and determining in the court's discretion it is in the interest of the members to dissolve the NRA. What we have here is obviously in this legal filing. This is the actual complaint to dissolve the NRA, and this is following all of. And you can just scroll through this if you haven't looked through this thing. It's over 160 pages long, and you can go to dang near any page in here and see something that is just egregious and unconscionable. And that there at the end just kind of sums up what they did. It is disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting. And it is, I don't know what else to say about it, man. But this is everything we thought they were doing. It's everything that we thought they were doing. But it's now been laid out here in this court summons. And I just...
Yeah, it's on steroids. You know, it's everything we thought they were doing and then some. Now,
yeah.
I got to go to Mr. Andy Lander. Of course, Mr. Andy Lander last year wrote one of the most amazing open letters, I think, to the board of directors. And it seems almost prophetic. Or it seemed prophetic to me, you know, reading it just the other day again. Mr. Andy, how the hell are you, man?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, 100%. Go for it, buddy.
Sorry, I'm just coming back from West Virginia fishing trip. I was in the mountains. But yeah, no, I really wanted to get on the podcast a couple days ago, but I was, like I said, a little occupied.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, I mean, hey, by the way, I gotta tell you, you look like half the man that you were last year.
Thanks.
Yeah, you've only lost, half your body weight, but no. I'm sorry. Carry on, man. Tell us, first of all about your open letter, because a lot of guys probably don't know about your open letter, and then tell them what you're feeling right now.
Well, my open letter I wrote last year in April, right after some quote whistleblower stuff came out from some people, and basically it was calling to the board members to say that you guys need to do some stuff because it's getting bad and the association is not doing well from a leadership standpoint. And I called for for Wayne LaPierre's removal. It went on deaf ears apparently because here we are. You can read that letter. I'm not going to go through it line by line, but I gave some insight into my time I spent at NRA and some of the things I felt that were happening. I was really kind of concerned for the people that still work there. I get screwed. As I thought back in April that they'd be possibly jobless, or they would have a...
We're losing you, buddy.
Financial pay effect to them. Here's it will happen. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I think we're losing you, buddy. Hey, you know what? Let me come back to you hopefully in just a little bit. Rob, tell me something, man. I mean, this is okay. The New York Attorney General's summons. Okay, we also have the DC Attorney General's complaint. It looks to me. Well, okay. So first of all, there's two things that appear to me. I'm seeing a lot in the comment section that this is just some political ploy, and I'm also seeing that the timing is awfully convenient. What are your thoughts on those in regards to the New York Attorney General's complaint and the DC Attorney General's complaint?
Obviously, they are coordinated. I mean, that's not an accident, the timing of those two. I mean, anybody who thinks they're not, I don't know that anyone has claimed they're not. I don't think anybody in DC or Washington has been like, oh, gee, we were going to do that too. I think everyone knows that these two things they have been coordinated, and that those two offices have been coordinating. I mean, why would they not, right? This is an issue. My guess is that the IRS probably has an investigation going on too. There's probably other bodies that have investigations going on. But aside from that, why do they have investigations going on, right? So I understand the rush in the comments. When, maybe Herb can comment on the emotional response in the comments when people say, well, this is just politics. It's not just politics. It is political. Those things can exist at the same time. Here's the deal. Like, we've been saying all along that this was probably, we thought it was, I will say we talked a little bit a couple days ago. So if people didn't see you and I talking about this when it first came out, I think on Thursday evening it was, or afternoon, then maybe go back and look at that. I don't want to rehash all of that, but suffice to say, this is the shoe that was eventually going to drop if the NRA didn't do something drastic and dramatic to make this not necessary in one way, but also not possible in another way. When I say necessary, I mean the real issues, fixing the real issues, which all revolve around the current leadership that has been in place and for the foreseeable future apparently is going to insist on staying in place at the NRA. The reason that it couldn't have been possible if these things were fixed and addressed are obvious. The reason that it wouldn't have been possible in terms of the timing are simply that if you address these issues in the public space, if you get ahead of it, right? I've said it over and over again, we have to go back to Enron for the last time that an executive officer in the position of Wayne LaPierre, with the attacks and allegations and whether they're true or not drama that was going on around him, didn't just step down for the good of the organization. And this gets me to something really, really important. Anthony talked about the relief statements, right? What is the New York State Attorney General's office want? What are they asking? What do they think should happen? Well, if this was all out of nowhere, let's just say that Save the Second didn't exist. Rob Pincus never got up on a stage. Frank Tate never ran for a board seat as a reform candidate. That none of this existed. Ron and Anthony never started Save the Second as an organization to help reform the NRA. What would we be saying? We'd be saying, wow, in a political year, 2 weeks after the organization endorses President Trump, an anti-gun, pro-gun control attorney general's office in a very anti-gun, pro-gun control state comes out against the organization that probably, if you had to pick one organization that might have changed the election last year that wasn't the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, it would be the NRA, not last year, but in 2016. So it makes all the sense in the world from that political angle that they would do it now. I thought, honestly, it was going to be indictments. That's what I was going to say earlier. We thought it was going to be indictments and not a call for dissolution. But I would have thought that it would happen earlier this year. But I also was surprised that the NRA didn't formally endorse Trump until mid-July. So I thought that was interesting. So the timing here makes all the political sense in the world. It's still the NRA that allowed this to come to this head. If we didn't exist, if we had never made a complaint, if Jeff Knox had never written an article, if Tom Gresham and Michael Bain and Mark Walters had never called for Wayne LaPierre to step down as some of the most powerful and respected media representatives of the American gun community, if these things were never an issue and this got dropped on us, we would all be calling foul. I'm calling foul now, but I'm calling it on the NRA Board of Directors because what the New York State Attorney General's office is asking in what Anthony just read is that they are asking to step in on our behalf. Let's think about that. The New York State Attorney General's office has been put in a position where they can actually credibly stand up in a court and tell a judge that the members of the NRA are so ineffective or so deluded or so fooled or so foolish as to not have taken steps or made the changes happen, that they need to step in and protect us from the organization. They need to save us from the corruption and dysfunction, financial malfeasance at the top of the NRA. And they may be right. That's the sad part. They literally may be right, because what else are we going to do? How many people have told us all over and over again, we're wasting our time, we're beating our heads against the wall, there's better things that can be done, it's time to give up on the NRA, I won't run for the board. Frank ran for the board. I supported him running for the board. He really felt he could get on the board and maybe start to make some change happen. I think Adam Kraut felt that way a few years ago. I think Timothy Knight thought being on the board might be able to help him make some change happen. Obviously, Oliver North thought as the president of the NRA, he might be able to make some change happen. But none of us have been able to do it. And since there's still so many people out there putting money in the coffers of the NRA, maybe the New York State Attorney General's office is right. They need to step in to protect the members of the NRA. And that's a sad statement.
That's a crazy sad statement, but it's so true. There's no other way that I can conceive that we would be able to affect positive change in the NRA. Yes, Save the Second accomplished one of its goals. And that goal was to try to get directors to attend director meetings, something that should be common sense in the first place. Yeah, so I'm thinking that honestly, this will probably affect the NRA more so than anything any member ever could do, because so many members have tried and failed. And that was one of the things that our friends at Gun Websites mentioned a few moments ago. They said that we can rally for the 2A. You're dang right. I mean, come on, in Virginia, this past winter, hello, that was amazing. Why can't we rally to let the NRA know we are not satisfied? Well, guess what? They're going to ignore you. Plain and simple. We've been beating that drum for so long.
Let me just say, if you haven't shown up if you didn't show up at the fall meeting and you didn't show up at the winter board meeting, come on, right? I mean, we don't need to rally. Literally, members are allowed to go to the meetings, right? There were about 5 of us there by the end of it, right? I was the only one there for a couple of days, and then a couple other people showed up last year. Andy showed up last year, a couple nights or 2 days, I think. There were a few of us there in September in the Virginia fall meeting. There were maybe 24 of us there at the winter meeting that was held for the NRA board. Any member can go. So there's 4.999999 million members that didn't rally to let the NRA leadership know how we feel. So I'm a little bit, I kind of roll my eyes at that call. I understand where you're coming from, G-Web, but at the same time, who showed up? And we made it very clear and very obvious that we were going to be there and that members could be there. And even after the debacle that was the fall meeting and the NRA changing the way they acknowledge that members are allowed to come to these meetings, the committee meetings and the general board meeting, and not hiding behind executive session or trying to bully those of us who showed up away, we still only had a couple of dozen people show up that weren't actually on committees or obviously part of the NRA structure itself. So that opportunity has been there, and we as a community have blown it to rally to let the NRA know how we feel as members, because it's literally part of the bylaws that we can be there. Well,
and not only that, but now we don't even have the opportunity because of COVID. We can't even go to, the NRA meeting of the members. We don't even know if there's going to be a meeting of the members. Frank, tell me, I mean, in your findings, have you seen anywhere where there's going to be a meeting of the members?
No, I've reached out to John Fraser on this multiple times when the meeting was originally going to be in September and then it was pushed back to November. It's unclear how the 76th director election is going to take place. It's unclear how the petition process will work for the 2021 election, because you can't collect signatures until after the members meeting, but the due date for signatures is a month before the members meeting's even scheduled. And so, John said, be patient. The elections committee is working on coming up with an answer for you. And that was before all this came out.
Mr. Secretary of the NRA, John Fraser, who is also the general counsel for the NRA and listed specifically as one of the 4 defendants in the New York Attorney General's summons. Yeah, he's going to get to you probably, in the next hour? I'm sure he is.
I doubt it, because, to me, when you look at this in terms of if you go to item 544 and reading through from there in the New York complaint, John Fraser is the one who signed the regulatory filings that had inaccurate and information on it. And he's certifying under penalty of perjury that everything is true and accurate, and it's not. So John Fraser is on a big hook here.
Oh, definitely so. Well, all of these people that are listed here are on a big hook. Now, I'm kind of pissed off that Wayne LaPierre, Woody Phillips, Josh Powell, and potentially even John Fraser, should he have committed a crime, aren't in jail right now, pending bail. Anthony, I mean, you're not a law enforcement officer. I mean, maybe this question should go to Pincus, but you haven't talked in a while. So, Anthony, why are these guys not being charged criminally, but yet the New York Attorney General is going for the entire dissolvement of the NRA?
You may yet see criminal charges, I would think. Right now, I mean, this is obviously just all civil stuff, but you might see criminal charges. Again, I'm not a lawyer or anything, but just wait for it; it might come.
Yeah, go ahead, Frank.
I would echo Anthony. I think that Rob talked about this as the political timing of this in terms of trying to take the NRA off the playing field for the 2020 election. That this is the first shot of a salvo, and that criminal charges are the next thing to come out. My expectation would be right after Labor Day, when the media starts, when people start paying attention to the election, this is going to further distract the leadership of the NRA from being able to support candidates in the election.
So I think I have to disagree with you just slightly. I don't disagree that there's political motivation. There's obviously political motivation. I mean, since I was born, anti-gun Democrats have made it a statement to try to take guns away, period. I mean, I grew up through the assault weapons ban. I mean, that's political timing, right? And you could probably say that, Letitia James, did this before the election politically. You could also say that if she had done it after Trump won re-election, that it was politically motivated. You could also say that after, just hypothetically, Joe Biden was elected and she then pressed charges, on the NRA, that was politically motivated, because they're trying to accomplish their ultimate goal. I mean, everything is politically motivated. Guys, if anything, I could tell you to get that out of your head and focus on the problems. Okay. The minute that we're able to see the problems and then formulate a solution, then perhaps we're able to overcome the problem, improvise, adapt, overcome the problem. But still, I don't think there's much that we can do to affect the solution. Mr. Rob, what do you think? Is there anything that we can do to affect the solution?
Yes. I mean, we can still, once a meeting is actually set, we can still attend the meeting. Once the new adjusted timeframes are announced, we can start talking about petitions. We can start talking about reform candidates like Frank. We can still do all those things. And as we've proven in the past, those things are worth doing at some level, right? I mean, however this turns out, we can still sit back and say, we did help to make a change happen. And and I feel the same way you do. I mentioned the other day about John Fraser. He's, of the 4 people mentioned by name in that list, he's the one that has at least over the last year or two distinguished himself as someone who is actually communicating. He's communicated directly with a lot of us. He's communicated directly with, obviously, Frank. He's communicated quickly and readily, even with some of the board members who've been very openly anti-Wayne LaPierre, whether they're still there or not. He has, from my perspective, been the one who's been doing his job in a fair way, at least for the last year and a half, 2 years, since we've been paying attention to this part of it. And yet he's still named in there because of things that he did in his position, and a position of great responsibility, by the way, and that I'm not trying to diminish his potential role in all of this. I'm saying that at least I've seen change, at least I've seen work in action on his behalf, right? But the idea that we can't do anything, I think we've never agreed with that, right? We've always known it was a long shot that we might be able to affect change as the Save the Second group, or that there would be enough candidates like Frank that could get on the board and really vote to make change happen. What we can do is continue to share this information, continue to educate American gun owners, continue to put very public pressure. Every time we speak now, it's an open letter. We know that the board's paying attention. We know that Wayne's office is paying attention. We know that he hears directly about most of this stuff that we talk about in post. We know that Marion Hammer and Willis Lee are, chomping at the bit. Although Willis Lee seems to have had his muzzle put on or leash yanked. He isn't nearly the guy he was on the internet, over a little over a year ago. But Marion Hammer is still out there responding to everything. So we know that we're having an effect, right? The question is it a big enough effect, fast enough to keep the NRA from getting dissolved? I don't think it is at this point. But us backing off or us giving up, and when I say us, I'm not just talking about Save the Second or the people on this podcast. I'm talking about every American gun owner and certainly every NRA member, active, current, life member, benefactor, whatever, that has a vote on this, has a voice on this, should be casting that vote and using their voice. Unfortunately, the vast majority of us aren't in a position to really do anything except hold back funds. That's the biggest way we can affect them. And as I said in the podcast, and as people have started to figure out here in the last couple of days, if the NRA is dissolved or if their operations are halted or suspended in any way, it is entirely possible that every one of those NRA CCW instructors that's operating under a state that uses verbiage related to their certification in a national program or their certification under a national organization, if that program or organization ceases to exist, I think their legitimacy or credibility or legality as a CCW instructor in those states is instantly called into question, if not obviously revoked. So there's a lot of trickle down stuff here that affects the gun community that we need to be aware of, so that the faster you pull funding, the faster you start figuring out what the alternatives are, supporting your other national organizations, supporting your state organizations, supporting niche organizations like Guns for Everyone that promotes diversity inside of the gun community, whatever your thing is going to be, the faster you start doing all that, the better right now. Because we've been trying this for quite a while, covertly and for years for some of us, and overtly as Save the Second for over a year now, and it's not worked. And now this may be taken out of our hands. So we really do need to be hedging our bets at this point, because I don't think there's anything magic we can do to make the NRA change at this point. It's in their hands or in the New York State Attorney General's office.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's definitely in their hands. Now, I will say that we will probably start to know more and more as time goes on, obviously, but the New York Attorney General's summons mentioned 20 days to respond, or 30 if it wasn't personally delivered. That would be August 26th that we may know something more in that case. So August 26th, we might know something. Regardless of that, should the NRA survive magically, magically, it's going to take a lot of amazing members that have a strong Second Amendment focus to be able to build from the ashes. Frank, what do you suppose are the odds? Do you think we'll be building from the ashes, or do you think we'll be going with a new entity altogether? What's your thoughts, man?
I think it's going to wind up being both. To me, the real failure here is the board of directors to exercise its fiduciary duty. They've known about these problems. This summons by the New York Attorney General and the one from the DC Attorney General give the board an opening to take action. I've been calling on the board members to take action. I've been very disappointed with the comments of people like Herb Lanford and Barbara Rumpel who have commented that they're still in the hunker down mindset. So I don't believe that the board is going to follow through with its fiduciary duty, and that's going to lead to ashes. The question is, how does it reconstitute? I think the Attorney General is overreaching with the death penalty to shut down the NRA because the members still have benefit from the organization. It's a question of, I think there was an article in I think it was the Wall Street Journal that said that what the Attorney General is going to do is not kill the NRA, but rather decapitate it. And that's what we're looking for. Get the bad management out of the organization, fix the board, and then that's the ashes that we can reestablish. But I think the other, as Rob talked about, the other organizations need to step up, and that gun owners need to be members of other organizations as well, because we need Plan B. I know of USCCA instructors who are reaching out to NRA certified instructors saying, hey, Plan B, come get certified with USCCA. That way we can continue to do the work that we do to educate gun owners in marksmanship and safety. And so I think we've got to play both sides of that. I hold out hope that the board will eventually, that the NRA will eventually come through this and we can reconstitute from the ashes. But we need a Plan B where we have another strong organization that can succeed the NRA should it not come out of the ashes.
Yeah, so I want to take a comment real quick on from Gun Websites. Great guy. So he asked, how do you suggest people and NRA members react to this situation then? I think he's mainly referencing Rob Pincus just a few moments ago. Is there a position or suggestion from Save the Second? I'll give you my suggestion right now. If your goal is to expand and protect the Second Amendment, the NRA is probably not where you want to put your money. Because guess what? Right now, we found out that $63 million, according to the New York State Attorney General, has gone into the pockets of people in power in the NRA. So my money didn't really go to saving the second or protecting the second or educating people. Support somebody that will. Now, on the other hand, we need the NRA desperately. We need them to be strong, effective, relevant, and accountable. So don't just resign your life membership or your voting credentials just yet. If you're an annual member and you don't have voting eligibility, I wouldn't recommend at all that you go through and try to renew that membership, because guess what? That money's probably going to William Brewer, who, by the way, William Brewer is probably over there trying to milk every dime out of the organization. And he's probably been the Pied Piper that has gone along and made sure that all of these directors are following Toe. Just pay attention to me and we'll see it through. That's William Brewer III, who has donated to Hillary Beto and is an anti-gun son of a... Okay, maybe I should just get off my high horse. One more question. Josh Van Camp, he was one of the few members that attended with us to the board meeting in January. Great guy. He says, who are on the wish list for replacements at the executive level? My kids would do a better job. My old man, who's in Arkansas right now, Dinkin at his church, he would do a better job. Practically anyone on earth would do a better job. I mean, that's just me. You know what, Rob? You haven't talked in a while. Who would do a better job? Who's on our wish list?
To me, it's foolish to throw out any name, because any name we throw out, somebody can come up with, oh, well, there's a reason why that person's not a good choice, or that person was... Some of the people I would put on that list have been involved with the NRA in the past, or have served on the board, and maybe even are serving on the board right now. And I realize that by extension taints them in some ways. So I personally wouldn't make it a complete fresh start. I think there's some people that I would say, but guess what? I'm not in charge. And none of us are. I think your point is probably incredibly important, that if you create that void, it will get filled. This has been the argument about replacing Wayne LaPierre. And Frank, I think in the past, Frank and I have disagreed on this, and he may... I'm anxious to hear what he has to say right now. I think if you just simply replace replace Wayne LaPierre and put the NRA, a committee, a better committee on the board, or a committee of members, or a committee of benefactors, or some group of former presidents, pick something, any group that can be held accountable to create a search to go out on LinkedIn and find a new CEO. I mean, Wayne LaPierre was no gun guy. He wasn't in the gun industry before he was, put in power by Ackerman McQueen and the rest of that cabal. So we certainly don't, and I'm not saying we want to do this all over again, but my point being, it's not like the NRA only hires from within the gun community. I mean, Jason Wimay went out and, his deputy, his number 2 guy, came from the gaming industry. I mean, there are a lot of people around the world and around the United States who could lead the business of the NRA, lead the membership organization of the NRA in an effective way that don't from the gun community. Obviously, I think they should have some kind of gun legitimacy, gun world legitimacy as Second Amendment supporters and gun owners and active participants in the shooting sports and our activities. But at the same time, I don't think we should limit ourselves to, well, we can now get rid of Wayne, and we can now get rid of Carolyn Meadows, and we can now get rid of Fraser if we have to. We can now get rid of all these people because here's this lineup that we want to put in place. Create the vacuum in a controlled way, as opposed to dissolve the NRA, right? That's what the New York State Attorney General's office is. Get rid of the NRA. Certainly, some other organization is going to rise to the top. Somebody's going to fill that vacuum from the gun rights community, and that would work out okay too. But I am in favor of creating the vacuum and then going about the process of replacing the executive level leadership at the NRA and certainly whole executive committee at the board, if not the entire board, in a new refreshed election with a better process and a smaller board and term limits and all that stuff. But at the same time, I think too many people have used that as an excuse for too long. Well, there's no successor, so we can't get rid of Wayne. What would we do if we didn't have a leader? Well, we'd save a lot of money right now from this leader.
Yeah, we definitely save a lot of money. Frank, you've got so much to add. Yeah, go for it, buddy.
No, I think, Rob, what you just said here is spot on. It's time to create the vacuum. After the last board meeting, I looked at Joe DeBergalis, who by bylaws would step up if Wayne went in, and did not see anything changing because the executive committee would, the same, I'll use the word self-dealing would continue. You need to create the vacuum. It's time to just, I think as the Wall Street Journal article said, it's time to decapitate the NRA. And by decapitate, it's the senior leadership and the senior members of the board. They all need to go and reconstitute it with people that are focused on serving the members.
Man, I hope that is the case. I hope we can actually see the dross get burned away and the NRA be what it's supposed to be. Guys, we've been going for a while. Rob, I understand that you've been on here longer than you had imagined. I've got one more guy that I want to get to here in just a few moments. But Rob, I know you got a split, man. Give us your final thoughts. And by the way, I love you to death. Go ahead.
Love you, man. I appreciate all the effort. I know that you're more fired up than I've seen you in a while on this. And obviously, like, it's been a weird year for everybody. One of the positions that I took, a couple times this spring when there were a press release here or an incident here or a statement there, I said, I get why the gun community isn't super focused on this right now. I get why there's really not much to say or to be done in May or June. Even when we were talking about the annual meeting being postponed and we were talking about the election results not coming out and all the things that we've dealt with, at the same time, when our country is dealing with the politics of coronavirus and the potential of a real lethal pandemic that was going to wipe out millions of people back, we're thinking that way back in March. And now the frustration with the lockdowns that came in April and May, and then civil unrest starts up in June and take us into the summer. Now we're in an election campaign. I get why this isn't issue number one for most gun owners in 2020, but it got way more important and it came way back up to the top of the list here this past few days. And it is important to acknowledge the fact that, Frank has been, tied up in this election and the work that you've been doing, Ron, sort of keeping Save the Seconds website and everything else kind of going and fueling that conversation a lot more than I have for sure has been greatly appreciated. So, I'm going to go have dinner with the little one and with my parents and continue our end of summer road trip. But I'll continue to be commenting, I'm sure, on social media and talking about this. And as things break and as things develop, then I'm sure we'll be back on more of these podcasts. And as soon as there's a structure for the next meeting, for the next time frame for petitions, then I'll be right there as loudly and proudly as everybody else, trying to make the changes that we know need to happen from within the gun community, not from without. But once again, thank you guys very much.
Oh, I love you, man. I hope you have a good dinner and good hangout time with Tyler Pincus. And yeah, dude, I love you to death. Thank you so much, Rob. Take care, buddy. Frank, like I said, I've got one more friend who's going to join us here in just a few seconds. Can you give us final thoughts and perhaps a shout out to anything that you want us to have attention to?
No, I think to me, the one thing that was notably absent in any of the comments by the board members that have been commenting on social media is anything about the DC complaint. Because I think that DC complaint has real teeth. Because again, as an accountant, being able to charge, it was $11 million in 2018 and then $18 million in 2019 to the NRA Foundation for administrative overhead, while the ILA is not charged anything. And then the loans that the NRA is taking from the foundation in terms of having enough cash to operate. One of the things that I'm afraid of is that the DCAG is going to freeze the assets of the NRA and is going to block what Jason Wime's promise of putting tens of millions of dollars to work. That's presupposing that they have access to those funds. and that I can see the DCAG trying to freeze those assets and block the NRA from deploying those on behalf of program candidates. And so I think that's a challenge, and that you're seeing the continuation of the Brewer law firm driving the strategy for the NRA. And other than the Brewer law firm getting paid, I'm not seeing how this is going to resolve itself for the benefit of the members.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. I don't see any way that it is. And Frank, before you go, Gun Websites has a fantastic other comment that I want to bring to. He says this is such an opportunity to come together. It's over a negative thing, obviously, but it could have been so much worse. Why is our only option to watch it burn? My first thought is, we've been trying to prevent this from burning in the first place, and now it's in the court's hands. A judge will decide, or a settlement will be reached. One of the two. There's little that anyone else can say, and that sucks. That's a terrible conclusion to come to, but unfortunately, it's really the only conclusion that we have. The board of directors is not doing what they're going to, and they're doubling down. They're filing a counter lawsuit. They're not trying to reach settlement. They're not kicking Wayne LaPierre out. There's so little that the average NRA member can do. In fact, if we wanted to call a special meeting, we would have to have something like 250,000 NRA members sign a petition to have a special meeting, and that would be by the time this thing is probably going to court. Frank, is that accurate, or am I looking at that correctly?
No, I think you're accurate. The members elected a board of directors, and they're the ones who it's their job to fix this. They're the ones who have been that we've called on them for years to do their job, and they continue to ignore the members. And that now, as you said, it's in the hands of the attorney general, and it's going to be in the hands of a judge, and in terms of some settlement. Now, any settlement conversations are going to be confidential. Nothing's going to come out of those. But looking at the strategy that the Brewer law firm has taken to things in the past, they're going to try and push all this stuff out past the election, and then settle based on what happens after that. But to me, until pardon the language, until there's somebody with balls on the board to do the right thing, the members are limited by how we can influence the board.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, Frank, I'm afraid I'm going to have to bid you adieu because I have a special guest, and thank you very much, Frank. You are a stud. I love you to death, man. You're awesome. Thank you so much, buddy.
Yeah, take care. See you.
You too, man. Yeah, hopefully Frank gets reelected, or not reelected, but elected as the 76th director whenever we might have a members meeting. We don't know. Yeah, Josh mentioned that just a few moments ago. And Josh, we do not know when or if there will be a meeting of the members this year. It was rescheduled for November, and then apparently that's been canceled. We have no clue. Gentlemen, ladies, friends, I want to introduce to you a friend of mine who is near and dear to my heart. He really is. He's the quasi-leader of Gunning for Eternity. Just a great man. He's Ken McCohen. Ken, tell everybody who you are, what you do, all that good stuff.
Well, as you can see, can you hear me all right, Ron?
Oh, 100%, man. You're loud and clear.
All right. Awesome. As you can see, I am sitting in my rolling cave, also known as a 2002 Peterbilt, and I am parked at a truck stop in Vienna, Georgia. And I'm sorry I had so many tech issues earlier. I would have really liked to gotten in on the discussion a little bit earlier, but I am a truck driver. I'm a lifetime member of the NRA. I joined the NRA back in 2016 when I was working at Hornady Manufacturing. So if any of you out there happen to be carrying any critical defense ammunition that was manufactured any time in the last 2 years, there's a very good chance that I was running the machine that put the extractor grooves in those cases. So any failures are the fault of day shift. I'm just putting that out there.
Oh, that's great, man. That's hilarious.
I do have a question, Ron, and
yeah, go for
appreciate it. I appreciated Frank's and Rob's input on creating the vacuum. I truly do, because I think in some cases something good definitely needs to be cut off at the head when the head becomes toxic. And I truly believe that the top level of the NRA has indeed become toxic to the Second Amendment community as a whole. My only question is, do we spite ourselves with an anti-Second Amendment AG that's basically trying to disband the NRA? Is that a road that we're willing to travel down? What are the legal ramifications if she's actually successful? And down the road, what does that mean for the NRA? What does that mean for people like me who have invested a lifetime payment to be a member? Does this mean that the NRA eventually ends up going away if WLP decides to dig his heels in and tells everybody to go screw themselves and he's not going to leave? I'm just curious as far as what you think the answer to those questions are.
Oh man, and that's the questions that I've been pondering since Letitia James, made the initial summons on Thursday. Yeah, I kind of saw it coming too. I mean, don't get me wrong. We've been seeing that this investigation had been dragging on for 18 months. And so we knew that they weren't just going to say, here's a fine. The New York State Department of Financial Services already did that. There's a looming fine that's already coming from them. That's still in court right now. But God, it sucks so bad that the only persons that can make change to the NRA is an anti-gun attorney general. Oh my God, it makes me sick. It makes me sick to my stomach. But that's ultimately where we're at. And what happens to the NRA and what happens to Second Amendment culture, or I shouldn't say culture, but just there's so many facets that the NRA is in. The NRA has an iron in every fire, in training and education, in the ILA, and lobbying, and supporting politicians. It has an iron in every fire. Now, if that obviously just went away, well, that would be terrible because there's nobody to fill that particular void. We want somebody to fill the void of the CEO of the NRA and make it better. We don't want the NRA's, its mission to be completely destroyed. So that's what we stand to lose. We stand to lose a lot of momentum that the 149-year history of the NRA has made possible. On the other hand, I will say that probably in my eyes, the largest grievance in all of this is that we're seeing numbers in the millions. $63 million the New York Attorney General is charging that the NRA, mishandled. It went into people's pockets instead of to where it was supposed to go. We're talking in millions in so many cases, and yet the training and education's budget, it's pathetic. If we made education and training the focus like it's supposed to be in the bylaws, hunting education, hunting safety, and firearms, marksmanship, and education, truly education, I'm not even sure that we would have a Letitia James in this world. Now, I digress. I totally digress there. To answer your question, though, in reality, in true reality, what's likely to happen if there's a settlement to be had? The settlement will probably be taken. Currently, we have a civil case. It's civil. It hasn't gone criminal yet. It could go criminal. It should go criminal. But we just have the civil case. Now, it looks like what Frank was mentioning just a few moments ago, that the Brewer law firm is just going to dig their heels in and they're going to just fight it until the ship is completely 200 feet below the surface of the ocean. Now, that may be more of a ploy. I'm not sure. Still, in any case, in every case, the NRA is going to be impotent. So that's where I'm at. Now, of course, Ken, you are, like you said, a life member. I don't think you're as up to speed as many of us that geek out on this sort of thing.
No, I'm not.
What are your perceptions? I mean, I'm sure that the NRA wasn't even close to being in everyday conversation until really Thursday. So what are your perceptions? What do you think's going on right now in the average NRA member's mind?
Well, if you're thinking the average NRA member is the person that's been in the NRA for many, many years, I'm sure most of them are feeling a little bit bruised. probably a little bit betrayed by those of us that are also in the NRA that feel that a change at the top is necessary. For the lack of a better term, the FUDs perhaps in the NRA are not feeling real good about where things are. Personally, I was hesitant to join back when I worked at Hornady because I understood that the guy running the show was a former Democrat strategist. We all know that. That's been talked about ad nauseum. And when you put that guy at the head of a pro 2A organization, somebody like that is generally going to look out for their own butt before they're going to look out for anybody else's, all the while patting everybody's back and saying that I'm looking out for you. So for me, I sit and I go, okay, you're spending millions and millions and millions of our dollars on everything but what you say the NRA's purpose is. Well, if an anti-gun person has to take your ass down, then they should probably take you down. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I think that's where so many people are at. And of course, there's so many disenfranchised members that are like, screw it, I lost faith in the NRA years ago. I'm just a GOA member or just an FAC member or something like that. And of course, I always say that, hey, you should support every Second Amendment organization that you have faith in. Of course, personally, I love FPC. Matt LaRosiere is a guy that I would consider my friend. I've looked up to Adam Kraunt since before he was really high and mighty in FPC when he was on the Gun Collective doing the legal brief. Yeah. Now, I must add or mention a comment. Brian Crespin, dude's funny. He's a very, very funny guy. Great guy. He says, "What's with all the complaining? I was under the mistaken impression that the gun community in this country did not consist of a bunch of complainers. Was I incorrect?" Oh my gosh. That's a good point. I mean, we do have a lot to complain about within the NRA. On the other hand, we have a lot to be thankful for. It's not as bad as it could be. My house hasn't been overrun with protesters yet. I haven't had to light off the tannerite, and so I'm digressing. No, I mean, I think Ken. One of the reasons I really wanted to bring you on here is because, well, you've got a different perspective than most, so yeah, I think we have a lot to be thankful for. What do you think?
I do too. I agree. One of the things I wish the NRA would have taken on much harder than they have, especially since Trump took office, is national reciprocity. That's one of the things that's near and dear to my heart because I literally live in the 48 states of this country, and there's quite a few of them that do not take my carry permit. Like, for example, the state I'm sitting in, believe it or not, Georgia does not recognize Nebraska's concealed carry permit. So I've been sitting here all day just hoping some fool doesn't decide to bust into my truck, but I'm thinking it's too hot out for him to come and mess with some dude from Nebraska. But yeah.
Oh, now another
complaining. What was his name? Brian? I'm not.
Yeah, Brian.
I'm really not complaining, honest.
Now, a good complaint, perhaps a very valid complaint. Of course, Mr. Gun Websites, who's been following us, he says, we got a lot of work to do. He also says, is the internet a bunch of seats to watch what they do? Or is it our tool to organize a solution to this? So you're absolutely right, man. This is the pinnacle of the moment where everyone's attention is on the NRA and what's gone wrong and why we're here. So this is the moment truly, if nothing else, to educate NRA members and gun owners. I mean, there's something like an estimated 150 million gun owners in the United States. And I guarantee you that number has probably gone up by 10 million at least in the past 6 months. Mm-hmm. So it stands to reason that so many of those people have had no clue what's going on until now. So this is probably the perfect opportunity for you to educate. I said it a long time ago, and I'll say it again. It's not what I'm sorry, correction. I just messed it up. It's not what the NRA can do for you. It's what you can do for the NRA. I'm quoting John F. Kennedy with the NRA in there, and it's very, very true. In this case, what we can do right now is to educate people. If you're not telling your battle buddy, what's going on in the NRA, if you're not telling your fellow instructor what's going on in the NRA, You need to. Now, granted, I'm not saying that you need to become an apostle of the NRA and go spread the good news of Wayne LaPierre's indictments and so on and so forth. On the other hand, I am saying that a little bit of education goes a long way, and this is very much the opportunity to do so. Ken, what do you think?
I completely agree. I have spent a lot of the last couple of years nibbling on the edges, being involved in the gun community only so far as to listen to a lot of gun podcasts and try to educate myself at least a little bit on the issues. I'm familiar enough with what's going on in the NRA, mostly because of the work that you and Rob and Frank have done with this podcast and the Facebook groups and whatnot that you guys are administering. And I truly appreciate all the effort that you guys are putting in. And I apologize for not picking up my part of the slack as just Joe Blow, everyday gun owner. But, you know, when you run a business like I do, it's hard to jump in with both feet into things like this. But it's going to be awfully hard to run my business if both of my feet are cut out from under me by a country that is increasingly becoming more and more hostile toward people who think like you and I do. So, let's move forward, guys. Let's figure out positive ways to move forward. Let's come up with plans. I have no idea what the blazes that looks like, but I know where it's got to start. And I know you're going to agree with me on this, Ron, and it's got to start by fighting from a kneeling position and asking Almighty God to restore the courageous hearts in this country that are willing to stand up for her.
No, I totally agree. 100% agree. Now, of course, folks, if you're listening, Ken and I are both Christians, full disclosure. Okay. On the other hand, even if you're not a Christian, I don't care if you meditate. Mm-hmm. If you're sending positive thoughts, I don't care. There's a point of this where you probably need to be in some form of prayer. Or, that's something that I've definitely lacked. And I thought I had the other day. So, of course, in the Bible, in the New Testament, you look at the Apostle Paul. The Apostle Paul, previously Saul, he was a bad dude. He was a really, 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 really bad dude. Imagine if tomorrow Wayne LaPierre steps up and says, guys, this was all my fault. I take full responsibility. Oh my goodness. That would certainly change my tune. Now, of course, we certainly have to have 100% accountability. And just because you say you're sorry doesn't mean that, you know, the consequences don't befall yourself and others. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But man, you know, it would be a very different world if we had persons who not only were held accountable, but apologized and sincerely asked and, you know, just seeking forgiveness, just ask for forgiveness. What do you think, Ken? Do you think that'll ever happen?
Well, I am not one to judge, and I am certainly not one to make judgments of others. Nothing is beyond what God can do. And I know I've heard Wayne LaPierre invoke his name in the past and even lead a prayer or two at the NRA convention. So nothing is beyond my ability to judge where it's going to go. Our job as members is to continue to hold the feet to the fire, continue to hold ourselves accountable for our own actions within the 2A community, as well as whatever faith you belong to, and then move forward as best as you can to bring as many people alongside of you and to walk arm in arm and say, no further. You can't go any further than here, because it's about us. It's just like the government, Ron. They don't run us. We're supposed to run them. They work for us, just like in the NRA. Wayne LaPierre does not work for whatever the hell his salary is. He works for us. So, yeah.
That's a great point. Now, I'm sorry, carry on.
No, I was just going to say, if it takes an anti-gun New York Attorney General to bring all of this to light, then maybe that's how the Almighty is deciding to do it, which I'm cool with.
Totally agree, man. Now, to end on a more constructive note, to move forward, my buddy Josh says STS needs to emphasize next steps more. You're absolutely right. Otherwise, it comes off as negative. Yeah, Save the Second should have an organized membership platform and start to raise money for media campaigns. Yeah, maybe that is something that we should certainly strive to. I mean, currently our budget is next to nothing. I'm doing this, of course, out of my own pocket. I never envisioned Save the Second as being a membership organization in the first place. I was really hoping just to be able to afford some flyers and stuff like that so that we could rally a grassroots movement to go through the bylaws and to make the changes necessary via the bylaws. And that's become a problem now where it's probably not feasible. It's not reality. And I shouldn't say it's not reality. It's something that in a perfect world, if the New York Attorney General wasn't, laying down the hammer on the NRA, if DC Attorney General wasn't laying down the hammer on the NRA, if Oliver North and the NRA wasn't in a lawsuit, if Ackerman McQueen and the NRA wasn't in a lawsuit, if the New York Department of Financial Services wasn't suing the NRA, if all of that was aside, it would be so much easier to go through the bylaws and to actually have a next step. Currently, and like we were during the early stages of the pandemic in April, we were looking at, going and hitting Nashville hard. Holy smokes, I spent so much time in Nashville walking around trying to organize when our members meeting would be and where we could, rally and where we could, coordinate and all that stuff. And of course, that was all for nothing. It's all gone.
Right.
It was canceled. And we still don't know when the next rescheduling of the members meeting would be. So it's so much more difficult to even know what the next step is truly. Only time can tell. And you have my word that whatever that next step is, we're going to go for it. And I'll be looking for that next step. And if any of you have any clue what that next step is that us, the members, can do, well, by God, I am down for the war. Trust me on that.
That's right. Any and all ideas would be welcome, right, Ron?
100%, sir. Ken, thank you so much for jumping on, man. I love you to death. You're an inspiration to me personally. Yeah. And yeah, I love you, buddy.
I love you too, man. And thanks so much for having me on. Sorry about all the goofy tech issues earlier, but maybe this was by design. Maybe we were supposed to close this deal out and hopefully provide a little bit of inspiration for those who might still be watching or might watch later on down the line, because that's what's important. It's getting a message out.
Yeah, buddy. All right, gentlemen. So to wrap up, I always quote John F. Kennedy. It's not that I love Democrats. Don't take that the wrong way. Okay. Sorry. But to quote John F. Kennedy, to state the facts frankly is not to despair the future, nor indict the past. The prudent heir takes careful inventory of his legacies and gives a faithful accounting to those of whom he owes an obligation of trust. And for any of you who think that we're out to destroy the NRA, go read Proverbs 13:24. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Josh, thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting. Brian, thank you for commenting. Gun Websites, thank you so much for your input. There's so many people I want to thank. Thank you all. If you're listening to this on the podcast, thank you. We'll try to get back. As soon as there is a next step, by God, I'm going to be beating that drum, whatever that next step is. Until then, I guess we could just sit back and watch the sparks fly and eat some popcorn. But until then, take care, folks. See you later.
Talk to you later, guys.